Fortnite SMGs are often some of the best or some of the worst weapons in a Fortnite meta. We have seen some incredibly blatantly overpowered SMGs, and we've also seen some SMGs that should never ever be in the game again. And in this video, we are going to rank every single SMG in Fortnite history from worst to best. I should preface here at the beginning of the video, I will not be including the Chimera Raygun or Bender's Shiny Metal Raygun, as those aren't technically considered SMGs, they don't really have a weapon class, or the Drum Gun, because as much as you think it's an SMG, it's technically categorized as an AR. If you go on to enjoy this video, be sure to give me a like. These videos take a little bit to make. Use code TYFRYZ in the Fortnite item shop if you would like to support the videos that I make here on YouTube. And guys, let's just get right into this. At our number 20 spot, what I believe to be the worst SMG we've ever seen, that is the preseason submachine gun. And quickly, while I got you guys all here early, we are talking about the current state of the weapon, and that will be important once we get to certain weapons who have seen huge buffs or huge nerfs. But anyways, this SMG is the first SMG ever in Fortnite, the one when the game originally launched. You guys know which one I'm talking about. And honestly, not many people watching this video may have ever used this weapon, but you should be glad you didn't because it was atrocious. It had a very low magazine, was doing I think 11 damage with just insane bloom. I mean, the gameplay will speak for itself. I think it's the worst one ever. At our number 19 spot, that is the Charge SMG. And I'm telling you guys, I always have a cult fan club of people that love the Charge SMG in every one of my videos telling me how it's a top tier weapon, but I gotta be honest with you, I disagree with that. I think the charge mechanic works better on a shotgun because you only need to really hit that one big shot, right? But with a Charge SMG, you have to hit 10, 15 bullets to try and kill somebody, right? It just doesn't make sense to ever use this thing, especially when you charge it up, you have to shoot all the bullets at once. Like, that's terrible. Just trying to have to go out of your way to like pre-charge your SMG before you shoot somebody is a total disaster. What this SMG does have going for it is it's got a great fire rate, and if you do get it fully charged in a box with somebody, it's essentially like a minigun. You'll basically just mow them down. But by the time you've charged up already, they probably have shotgunned you in the face, so it's not worth using at all. At our number 18 spot, and I gotta be honest with you guys, this one surprised me a little bit. That's the tactical submachine gun. Man, I mean, when I was doing research for this video, I didn't realize how bad the Tac sub is. It's just not a good SMG. I think it used to be, but it got hit with some big time nerfs. I believe it was in Season X or maybe a little bit after that. Got hit with some big nerfs and made it basically unusable. Also, like on a totally unrelated note, why do they ever have to change the sound of this gun? This thing sounded so crispy. I remember being so excited for this thing when Starry Suburbs came out, of course, and they introduced the legendary Tac sub. But wow, I mean, this gun has taken a complete fall off, and I mean, go look at the numbers for yourself. It's actually worse than the weapon that's going to be at the number 17 spot, which I couldn't even believe. And that weapon at the number 17 spot is the makeshift sub. Guys, it pains me to put any Chapter 2 Season 6 weapon not in last place, but the stats will tell you the makeshift sub is somehow better than the Tac. And you guys left me a bunch of comments on some videos saying, Ty, look at the stats for the makeshift and the Tac. They have the exact same stats. If you can somehow believe it, the rare makeshift SMG with a DPS of 190 is higher than the DPS of the tactical submachine gun's legendary version at 189. While the makeshift has a slower fire rate, it actually makes up for it in damage. Again, I can't really believe that I'm putting it this high on this list, honestly, but it kind of deserves it. Chapter 2 Season 6 lovers, go ahead and rejoice in the comment section, because it's the only time on one of my videos that you'll be able to do that. Anyways, moving up to the number 16 spot is the Machine SMG. And this weapon honestly goes totally forgotten about, mainly because of how good the Twin Mag SMG was. There is no universe in Chapter 4 where you would ever take the Machine SMG over the Twin Mag. The Twin Mag is one of the best, and we will see that same kind of thing happening with two other weapons on this list. And it's not just because the Twin Mag was that dominant. The Machine SMG was great, and that's mainly because of how big the bullet spread was, or the bloom. You basically had to use this thing at shotgun range, right? Anything past shotgun range, you're doing like 8 damage a bullet, and the spread is just everywhere. It's insane. The advantage with this weapon is you get a high magazine size, so if you are in a box with somebody, you can basically just kind of outspray them, really. But it's going to take being better than just being good in a box fight to get higher on this list, if that makes any sense. And the Machine SMG is really not good outside of a box fight. And in Chapter 4, like I said, it made no sense to take this over the Twin Mag SMG. Also, shout out to the OGs who remember in Season 9 when this thing was briefly added for like a day or something like that. At the number 15 spot is the Burst SMG, and not the Thunder Burst SMG, but the one that was added in Season X, I believe. Could be in Season 9, but you get what I'm saying. And this is another example of one of those weapons that people keep telling me in the comment section was good, but guys, take off the rose tinted glasses, this thing was kind of mid. And it might honestly just be because we have seen such a better version of the Burst SMG that this one just totally falls behind. But low damage, bad recoil, the gameplay honestly should speak for itself. I remember watching a laser beam video with this weapon, and he was like actually raging. He could not get a kill with this gun. Season X especially was so hectic that there was really no space in your inventory to take a Burst SMG. And yeah, so this weapon wasn't really for me, but I could see it being a little bit higher on this list, maybe 2 or 3 spots, but nothing really higher than that, let's be honest. At the number 14 spot is an OG weapon, that is the suppressed submachine gun. And there definitely was a time in Fortnite history when this was the best weapon in the entire game. People were taking it over scars. I vividly remember it. You either remember it or you don't. But guys, we are far removed from the suppressed SMG being a dominant weapon in Fortnite, and at this point, it just stays on the sidelines. It's a neat weapon, I guess, and the one thing that it has going for it is it's extremely accurate. You guys know when you shoot this weapon, the first shot accuracy resets almost instantly, and I guess that's okay for like those close to mid-range gunfights, but I don't know, this weapon just doesn't really do it for me. I also just think having a suppressor on a submachine gun doesn't really do anything because, as we all know, we mostly use submachine guns right after we shoot the shotgun shot, right? We shoot the shotgun, then follow it up with the SMG. So at that point, your cover is already really blown when you shoot the shotgun, right? So what does having a suppressor on the SMG really do? It makes sense to have it on like an assault rifle or a sniper, but an SMG, not really, and I think that's why it's the only one we've ever seen with a built-in suppressor like this. I don't know, to me this SMG doesn't feel great, but it's also not horrible, so don't get that mixed up. It's definitely not terrible, but really not great at all. At the number 13 spot on this list is the Scoped Burst, and I don't really know about this one. I mean, was anybody really hoping and begging for a scoped SMG? Like, I don't think so. I definitely wasn't. I understand that to me this weapon kind of played like a hybrid AR SMG, like that's the whole point of putting a scope on a SMG, especially a zoomed in scope like that, but it didn't really do it for me. Again, I'm the type of player that likes to use SMGs at close range and pretty exclusively close range, so a scoped SMG did not move the needle for me at all. What I will say is this is a prime example of a weapon that in the right hands can be absolutely dominant. If you are accurate and you hit those 2-3 bullets in that burst, you could be doing some serious damage, and I have seen multiple clips from Chapter 4 Season 4 of people getting killed at AR distances with the scoped burst SMG. It's just personally not for me and not a weapon that I seeked out during that season very often, and since it's my list, yeah, this is where it's going to be. At the number 12 spot on this list, and you Chapter 2 Season 6 lovers are having a field day with this video, that's the Primal SMG. In my other videos, I do rip on Chapter 2 Season 6 weapons and how bad all the weapons are, but the one thing about this season that was good was the Primal SMG. It was actually probably the best out of the Primal and makeshift weapons that entire season. This is just a really solid SMG. I mean, a DPS of 220 at the legendary version is absolutely going to get it done. 35 bullets in a magazine, headshot damage ranging from 52 to 61 with 22 damage a shot. I mean, that's going to get it done. Granted, it was pretty inaccurate, and of course, that's the case with all the Primal and makeshift weapons, really, but man, also, this weapon sounded sick. I always rip into Chapter 2 Season 6, but I can give this season credit when it deserves it, and it definitely deserves it for the Primal SMG. At the number 11 spot, and I think probably the first kind of out there take of this video, that's the Hyper SMG. And I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of surprised I put it this high. I really did not like this weapon. And again, as I previously mentioned with the Machine SMG being totally outclassed and overshadowed by the Twin Mag SMG, this is the same case here with the Hyper SMG and the Thunder Burst SMG. This is just one of those examples from Chapter 5 Season 1 where it's like, why would you ever take the Hyper? Everyone knows the Thunder Burst was better. That was a known thing. All the pros were using the Thunder Burst. There was absolutely no reason to take the Hyper. I think in a better season, this weapon would have fared a lot better because it's really not terrible. I mean, I still feel like it is a usable weapon, but especially in a season with a dominant other SMG and a dominant shotgun, especially a fully auto shotgun at that, the Hyper for me became kind of useless in Chapter 5 Season 1. And kind of similarly to that, in Chapter 5 Season 2, we got the Harbinger SMG, and that's going to be my number 10 spot. And again, as I just mentioned with the Hyper, right, and being in a fully auto shotgun meta, the Gatekeeper shotgun and the Harbinger SMG are basically the same thing. While I think the Harbinger gets a little bit more use because the Gatekeeper in most cases only has 3 bullets in a mag, so you kind of had to carry an SMG. The problem with this weapon was really the recoil, and as you guys know with the Harbinger, the longer you held down the trigger, the more recoil you would get. So if you're able to kind of fire it in like 5, 6, 7 round bursts, you'd be able to do some pretty good damage and have pretty good accuracy. But if you were going to try and full auto this thing at somewhat mid ranges, good luck hitting a shot. It's going to be crazy. I don't know, like this weapon is at the 50% mark in this list, and that's because I think it's extremely mid, right? It's really not great and it's really not terrible. It's just a very average submachine gun. And at our number 9 spot on this list, a weapon with a ton of history, that's the Stinger SMG. And man, this weapon is another weapon that was up there for one of the best weapons of its time when it got launched. The Stinger was so strong. Then they actually nerfed it by decreasing the damage in each rarity by 2. So it started out doing 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24 damage, down to 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22 in those respective rarities. And if that wasn't enough, they then nerfed it again by decreasing the damage by 1 damage now. So it went from 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22 to 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Just a massive nerf. And then they also reduced the damage to structures by 5, which is one of the things that made this weapon stand out in comparison to the other SMGs, especially. It had really good damage to structures. Even with all its nerfs, I do actually feel like it is still a decent SMG and definitely the best up to this point. It's just a shame what they did to my boy, man. They absolutely nerfed this thing into the ground. 228 DPS from the legendary version is still pretty decent though. At the number 8 spot is just the base submachine gun, but the one that was introduced in Season 5. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, the P90 will be on a different spot on this list and will not be included in this specific ranking. This is another example of an SMG that was extremely strong when it launched, but has been nerfed since and is now a probably above average SMG, I would say. It's just your basic submachine gun. It's pretty good. It has a good fire rate, good damage, decent accuracy, like you would expect with a submachine gun. And it's just kind of your solid do-it-all weapon. If you want a weapon that's not too crazy, not too fast fire rate, but also gives you good damage in return, this is a good weapon to pick. It's decently versatile and can get the job done in most situations, and for that gets its spot within the top 10 on this list. At the number 7 spot here though is the rapid fire SMG. And I think some people are going to argue that this should be higher on this list, maybe even within the top 5, especially Cypher PK, man. That guy loved this weapon. But man, this gun is such a hit or miss weapon. Of course, as the name suggests, it has an incredible fire rate. I believe the best fire rate other than the Charge SMG in its class. And that is a really good thing, but really only when you're in someone's box. You're just going to absolutely melt them, especially if you get a big shotgun shot for 100 plus. You pull out the rapid fire, they're going to get melted. But similar to the machine SMG mentioned earlier in this video, this thing is going to absolutely struggle outside of those extreme close quarter engagements. So you basically trade off the really good accuracy of a weapon like, let's say, the suppressed SMG or the twin mag SMG for an extreme fire rate and lower damage. So this is one of those weapons that's like kind of pick your poison, right? Another weapon that in the right hands can be absolutely dominant and used in the right situations can be really good and oftentimes outgun a shotgun, pending that you don't miss your shots, because of course it fires so fast that it's easy to get caught up and miss 10-15 shots and then you're kind of screwed. With that being said though, this is an SMG that has a lot of potential in the right hands and can be really good. At the number 6 spot is the P90 or the compact SMG. And interestingly enough, I actually believe in creative they have different weapon types between the P90 and the compact SMG. And as you've seen with several weapons already on this video, some SMGs have the tendency to release in absolutely broken states, and the P90 is no exception to that rule. This thing launched absolutely busted out of its mind. If you guys have seen one of the first videos I made on this channel revisiting some of the most overpowered weapons, I believe the P90 is in that list. But they absolutely had to nerf it, and nerf it they did. They nerfed the accuracy bonus. They reduced it from 35 to 15%. They also reduced the damage from 23 and 24 to 21 and 22, of course in purple and legendary rarities. They also reduced the fire rate from 11 to 10. They reduced the ranges, fall off percentages. I mean, they crushed this thing. If you'll also remember, this weapon also launched with a magazine size of 50, if you can believe it, and then they nerfed it down to 40, then also reduced the damage again from 21, 22 to 20 and 21. And I believe after that, those stats are how the weapon currently stands. And while yes, it used to be a lot better, it is still a very viable option. The bloom does kind of suck on this thing and the range is really not there, but honestly, in a range where you're supposed to use an SMG, this thing is going to shred. And at the number 5 spot, cracking the top 5, is the exotic version version of the compact or P90. That's the heisted run and gun SMG, part of the heisted event, of course. And this thing is basically just a beefed up version of what the P90 is, which is why it gets one spot higher on the list. While it does have really kind of a weak DPS and a lower damage than the regular P90, it makes up for it with the special abilities that you gain while using this weapon. And those abilities are that just holding the weapon will give the player the slap effect and will also reload the weapon while sprinting. So great mobility, and also you don't have to worry about reloading the weapon as it will just auto reload it for you. I believe it reloaded 1 bullet at a time and 2 bullets a second. This is an extremely viable SMG and a creative twist on the P90, and I believe it deserves to be just one spot ahead of the P90. At our number 4 spot is the Combat SMG, and I may be a little biased here because this is one of my favorite weapons of all time, and man, was this another example of a weapon that was absolutely busted for a time. And let me tell you something, 264 DPS is absolutely going to get the job done. It's got great damage, great fire rate, and a great magazine size. The problem here is just that recoil. This weapon has an absurd amount of recoil, and guys, if you're playing on control, you literally just have to yank that right stick all the way down when you are shooting this weapon. The good thing is the majority of it is vertical recoil, so you don't have to worry about managing horizontal recoil, which is just a total disaster. But I mean, just listen to the history of this weapon. It launched in such a broken state that they had to reduce the damage to players and structures by 2. So originally it was doing 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and then after that nerf it was doing 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 damage, of course in its respective categories. But arguably a bigger nerf was they took down the headshot multiplier from 2 times to 1.75 times, so you were doing less damage on a headshot. They then nerfed the damage by 1 across all rarities again, and 3 from the mythic. So the mythic launched doing 25 damage but quickly was nerfed down to doing 22 damage. It then got buffed back to where it previously was at 1 damage higher, and that's how it currently stands. Even with all these nerfs, I do think it is still a top tier SMG, especially in the right hands with somebody who can control that recoil. At our number 3 spot, and it was honestly hard for me to rank these top 3, but that's going to be the Twin Mag SMG. For the longest time, I really thought that this was the best SMG of all time, and for a little bit it was. Just an incredibly accurate weapon. I mean, this is essentially just a hybrid between an AR and SMG. Really good damage, essentially like very minimal bloom, and you also got the faster reload after each other reload, if that makes sense. This was the absolute dominant SMG of Chapter 4, and there's no surprise that it should be up this high on the list. I know some players were not a fan of this weapon, but the Thunder Shotgun plus Twin Mag SMG is absolutely one of my favorite metas of all time, and the Twin Mag SMG was a special weapon. This is such a good SMG, and any weapon that is the best in its category for an entire chapter obviously has to be high up on the list. And just double up on every single thing I said for the heisted Blink Mag SMG, which is our number 2 weapon. It just does everything the regular Twin Mag SMG does, but gives you incredible mobility in that like rift dash effect. For any of you guys who are unfamiliar, or maybe new players especially to Chapter 5, if you guys remember Chapter 5 Season 2, you had those green skulls that let you dash right from right, left, back, forward, however you wanted to move. It was basically that exact same thing, but just every time you reload the weapon, or I think it was every other reload, I forget. Regardless, being able to have such good mobility, right, at any time. It doesn't matter if you're actually using the weapon, right? Let's just say you're getting destroyed and you need to get out of a fight. Just shoot the SMG one time, reload it, and there's your quick mobility boost. You didn't have to have mobility when you had this weapon because you had mobility and a weapon in just one slot. And it's not like the actual weapon itself was bad. It was really good. I mean, the Twin Mag, as I just said, I just rambled on about it for about a minute or so. So yeah, this SMG honestly does everything right, and it was really hard to not put it at the number 1 spot. But all you Chapter 5 players, rejoice in the comments below. I think everybody knew it was going to be the number 1 spot on this list. That is the Thunderburst SMG. I mean, what do I have to say about this weapon? All the pros use it for a reason. It has been the dominant SMG of Chapter 5. Honestly, potentially the dominant weapon of this entire chapter. When you get those good attachments on this weapon, especially the laser sight, I believe it is, which gives you that infinite first shot accuracy, basically making the weapon have 0 bloom. I mean, it is just such a strong submachine gun. I think people expected it to be at least in the top 3, but I thought honestly when making this list, it was a no doubt this was the best of all time. It just has really good damage, of course, great accuracy, even when you don't get that attachment, you're still getting really good accuracy. There's a very short delay between the bursts. You will often see players, especially in Chapter 5 Season 1, using this as their assault rifle, and for a good reason. I believe it's the best submachine gun of all time. Alright guys, that is my list ranking every single submachine gun in Fortnite history from worst to best. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. How did I do on this list? Which weapons would you change around? These lists are of course really hard to make and entirely my opinion. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, because I upload basically every single day, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.